Welcome to the Burnout Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Nugent. I'm excited about this topic. I'm going to get real. We might get a little spicy today. I'm going to talk about relationships. I'm going to talk about my journey, what I've learned, and what I know today. And you can take it, you can leave it. I mean, literally just this week, there was a social media clip that Alex Hormozy posted. And it was stating that never take marriage advice from somebody that's not married. And yes, I'm divorced. Right now, as I record this, I am single. But I want to share with you what I've learned. You can take it or leave it. There are a lot of married couples out there that have been married a long time, and there's this badge of honor, if you will, that, hey, I've been married however long it's been, 15, 20, 30 plus years. And which, again, is admirable. Relationships aren't easy. We get triggered in relationships. And there's something to be said that someone that's been married a long time. I respect that. And for me, and for many people that have been divorced, it's one thing to be married. It's another thing to be in a thriving partnership where there's still passion and excitement and fun and playfulness years into a relationship. And I know so many people, and I would even argue that most people that I know that have been married a long time are roommates. Their marriages aren't thriving. They're there for the kids. I mean, they're for a number of different reasons. There are so many people that I know that are just going through the motions that aren't thriving. They're surviving. And the reality is relationships for each and every one of us are different. What I value, you might not value. What I want, you might not want. And I'm not here to tell you, what it should be or shouldn't be. I'm just here to share my story, what I've learned, my experiences, and what I know today. I am more resolute in who I am as a man and what I want. I want to get married. I'm calling my partner in and living very intentionally in being what I want to attract. So let's get into it. So I was married for 17 years. I got married when I was 24. I was raised Mormon, LDS. It was the Mormon thing to do. I went on a Mormon mission to Argentina, came back, and my ex-wife, we dated for 3 weeks before I left on my Mormon mission. And yeah, smitten, felt something. She was the first girl that I really, really, really connected with, all up until that point. In fact, she was my first girlfriend, if you will. And, we wrote, on my mission. She stopped writing, got a boyfriend during the time, which is great. And then a year into it, she wrote a letter as if it was my grandmother or my great aunt sending something. How's the food? How is this? How's that? It was so non-personal. I'm like, I'm never writing you again. And then, a couple weeks later, she wrote me something else, was much more heartfelt. And I fell in love with her on my mission of writing letters for the last year. We came back, started dating, in 6 months and 1 week into being back, I was 21, I proposed to her. And excited about that, all the things. But then literally I started to freak out. I remember specifically once we went to a Pottery Barn, and at the time I'm in college, I'm working at Chevy's Fresh Mex, as a server, and she went into Pottery Barn and was loving this and loving that. And again, she was just excited about life, about having a house, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to pay for this stuff? And I started to wig out. I started to, I don't know if I can do this, and the young 21-year-old me freaked out, cut the engagement off, didn't feel that it was the timing of it. And, dated for several months. She and I got back together, dated again. And then ultimately we ended up getting back together and got married. So it was about 2.5, 3 years after I got home. And, when you're young, you really don't know anything. And, here in my home state of Utah, culturally, people get married young. I have a completely different perspective on that. I have 4 sons. I've joked with my kids and said, hey, listen, if you get married before 30, I'm going to disown you. And of course, if they found somebody they want to get married, I will support it 100%. But there's something about experience. There's something about having, much of my message is directed towards men. Some of this will apply to both men and women, but as I'm communicating, I'm going to be communicating as if I'm speaking to men. But a lot of times we just don't even know who we are, let alone what we want, especially when you're young. And one of the greatest things in life is you've got to experience things. And without experience, you just don't know. And so, of course, when somebody gets married, nobody gets married planning on getting divorced. No one does, right? And we got married, started having kids really soon. She had a surprise pregnancy with our first son, and we were in the gauntlets of raising kids literally within 2 years of getting married. Our original plan was to wait 4 years, wait to have kids, get to know each other, date, if you will. And all of a sudden, you know what? Surprise, got a kid. And I wouldn't change it any other way. I remember when she got pregnant, I'm like, how in the hell are we going to be able to replace your $9 an hour that you're making at Z Gallery? I laugh and look back on that. As it relates to kids, I will argue and say that you're never ready. But when you have a kid, you can't imagine anything else. And so anyway, got into the throes of our marriage, started having kids, had 4 sons. And, obviously I'm building a career, the stress of paying for all of that. My boy's mom, my ex-wife, my co-parent was born to be a mother. She's incredible. Like, my kids are so lucky to have her. But the dynamics of life, over the years, we started to live parallel lives. I got great fulfillment in doing business. She, was the mom. And the reality is we didn't spend a lot of time dating. I didn't spend a lot of time courting her. It just didn't happen. And over time, that can really strain a relationship. So I'm a huge advocate for any of you that are married that are listening to this, is like, you need to date your wife. You need to pursue your wife. Just because you quote unquote got her, right? And we as men, that animalistic carnal hunter in us, like, it's the pursuit. So we do all the things when we date. We write the letters, we do all the things, we communicate, right? We're courting them. And then all of a sudden we quote unquote get them and they're now with us. It's fascinating. I mean, I did this. Tons of men, I'd say the majority of men actually, same thing, is like, they don't put as much effort into it. And just as much as we as men want to be pursued, so do the women in our lives. We need to continue to date. We need to continue to have fun. It needs to be a priority. If today you're not actively dating your wife, that needs to shift, because it will erode and it will catch up with you. And granted, life happens, work, kids, but I truly believe that the central point of anything in your life needs to be a relationship, and everything's built around that. It is the most important decision you will make in your entire life. And as such, that is where the greatest amount of energy and effort needs to go into. If your marriage or relationship is struggling, it will affect all parts of your life. There is no way about it. And in my case, as my business was taking off, I got great fulfillment. We had unresolved issues we weren't dealing with. We didn't have the tools. We didn't communicate well. And rather than lean into that and deal with that, I just spent more time and effort into my business, because that's where I was getting fulfillment. I wanted to avoid. I didn't want to deal with that. Even though underneath I was longing, I was lonely, I was, wanted a deep connection. I just didn't know how to do it. Didn't have the tools or the resources. And towards the end of our marriage, in going to therapy and really, really, really getting clear as far as kind of what my role was. And as we were working through that, we just couldn't come to terms with it. And, I wouldn't wish divorce on my worst enemy. Divorce is painful. Divorce is hell. It's gut wrenching. It will take you places that you never thought were possible. And it also can be a gift. It also can be a gateway or into something even greater. And I truly believe you cannot really, truly appreciate the highs of highs, if you've not experienced the lows of lows. You cannot truly appreciate deep intimacy, connection, and love if you haven't experienced heartbreak in the opposite side of it. You just don't know unless you've experienced both sides of it. There's beauty in the hard, there's beautiful in the easy, there's beauty in all of it. And what you do with that is really up to you. It's a choice. I talk about divorce a lot of time on this podcast. And one thing too I want to mention, not only here on the podcast, but on in my social media content, for those of you that follow me, I talk mostly, in fact, almost exclusively about my stuff, my role, my mistakes, what I've learned. I don't make it about my ex-wife. I don't make it about partners. I don't make it about anyone I'm dating. I don't do that, and I don't do that intentionally. Now, let's be clear. It takes 2 to tango. There are 2 people that both play a role in a relationship. I could spend as much time putting out content, talking about what people I've dated have done to me and all of their roles. I mean, of course, all of us can do that. But why? What's the point? What's the point of doing that? And I'm hopeful for that those of you can see as I communicate and share my experiences, that you can connect in that and also take responsibility for the role that you play, because we all play a role. Taking radical accountability for the role that we play is the most difficult thing that any one of us can do. The hardest person we currently face, have faced, or will ever face is ourselves. And it's sometimes very painful to look in the mirror and be like, okay, I'm contributing to this, or this is because of me. Again, it doesn't negate or take away from what your partner or your wife is doing, but nevertheless, you are playing a role. And if you want something to change, you have to change. Now, I believe that no matter how long you've been married, no matter how disconnected you are, you can still create magic. I believe the grass is green where you water it, not necessarily on the other side. And what my belief is, a core belief for me as it comes to relationship, is it takes two people, both a husband and a wife, to take radical ownership for the role that they play. 100% accountability. And if each person can do that first and foremost and then come together, magic can happen. With anybody, no matter how disconnected, no matter what's happened, you can have the most magic, most fulfilling relationship on the planet as long as you're willing to look at your stuff first and your partner's willing to do the same thing. If they're not willing to do the same thing and you are, it's not going to work, and vice versa. So again, the only thing you have any control over is you. So if that's the case, then control what you can control, you. So when I ended up getting divorced, my self-worth was shit. It was at the bottom. At the time I was extremely heavy. I weighed, I peaked at 350 pounds. I'd started to lose my weight, towards the end of my marriage, but it still, nevertheless, my worth was tied to my weight, and didn't know, and I had this belief at the time that no woman is going to appreciate me or like me until I was in shape. And that was just a lie. It was just a story. Now, my weight was a big thing in our marriage. It affected us many cases. I mostly made it a thing. She would make it a thing. But nevertheless, does it play a role? Yes. Does your weight play a role? Yes. If you want your wife to be turned on, is she going to be more turned on looking at you if you're in shape or not out of shape? It just is. So don't get offended by it. If your wife says you need to work out or do that, being physically fit makes a big difference. Your sex life, the intimacy in your relationship, will be significantly more intensified, more passion-filled if you're in shape. It just is. So just accept it. And again, if you want your wife to be turned on when she looks at you, then get your ass in shape. Otherwise, don't expect that, and vice versa. It just is. We all have carnal things. We all have a visual attraction to people. And so if you want to be more visual appealing, or have your person look at you with those, those desirable eyes, if you will, it's like, I want you, you've got to be that. You've got to be what you want to attract. So as I started dating after my marriage, dating was very therapeutic. I dated a lot. For about a year, I felt like I got 20 years of dating within a year. It was fun. It was exciting. During that time, I started to garner a lot of self-worth, a lot of self-confidence in me, even through sexual connections. In my marriage, our sexual connection was poor at best, if you will. And, for years and years and years, I took that personal. It's like, it's me. The reason we're not having sexual contact is me. The reason she's not being pleasured the way she is because of me. Now, did I play a role in that? Sure. But what I can tell you from experience is that many times, and this is specifically this is specifically directed at the men, the amount of pleasure or orgasms or however turned on your wife or partner is, many times for a woman, it really is as much on them as it is you. It's not about you. They need to feel comfortable. They need to be able to relax. And a lot of women struggle with that. And I've learned again from experience to where there were some women that I dated, there was a very strong sexual connection, and with others, there wasn't. And with time and experience, and more importantly, with more confidence in me, I didn't take it personal. It was just okay. It's like, we're just not sexually compatible. It doesn't, my worth's not tied to it. Whatever this particular woman or women, for example, that didn't feel the strong sexual connection, maybe I'm just not it. Maybe it's just not a compatibility. That, for me, that's what it is. And there's also something to be said about experience. Like with anything, how do you get good at something? You get good with experience. Society has a lot of negative beliefs. Religion does this too, around having more than one sexual partner. And I'm not advocating for sleeping around all the time or with, constantly with everybody you date, because there's a lot of that in society today. But I'm also saying there is something with experience. There is something for that. You still need to be safe. You still need to, take care of yourself and make sure there's mad respect and you're very fully transparent. But nevertheless, like there's something to be said with experience. And so again, dating was very therapeutic for me. And one thing that I found is that I was working on me. So I'm getting physically fit. I've got coaches and therapists, and I'm working really, really strongly on me being the best version of me. And what I found in dating is I was becoming a better version of me. The caliber of woman that I was dating actually increased at that. Now I believe energy attracts like energy. And so for the single guys out there, if you, for example, let's say you have your wish list, whether it's in writing, whether it's in your head, and it's like, hey, I want to date this person, or I want my wife to have these characteristics, right? Well, the reality is if you met a woman that had all these characteristics or checked all these boxes, a couple real pointed questions for you to ask yourself is like, one, is a woman that checks those boxes going to want to be with you? And are you checking those same boxes? If you want something, you have to be something. It's, again, we all, want something, but more often than not, we're not willing to do what's necessary or take the responsibility or do the work necessary to be what we want to attract. So if you want to have the things that you want in a partner, you have to be the things you want in a partner. And so dating for about a year, and then was, I had how do I say this? Actually cut this guy's out and then we'll come back, and then, dated for about a year and then started my first relationship about a year after being divorced. And she and I are friends. We worked together for several months. Before that, great connection, did never expect it. And then lo and behold, she showed up in a different energy and it was like, let's go. And in that relationship, I was able to feel and experience things that I had never felt before. Up to that point, I felt a love that I'd never felt. I felt a connection I'd never felt. It was incredible. It was euphoric. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful dance. And she and I were together on and off actually for about 4.5 years. And here just recently had another stint together. And what I learned in this with her, and I love her deeply and dearly, and want nothing but the best for her. But what I've learned with her after dating her for as long as I have is there's such a strong connection there. There's so much love. And also it doesn't necessarily mean that this relationship is for life or this is what it's going to be. And many times in my relationship, I did this in my marriage, I did this in dating, I did this with her. I would attach my worth to that. I would like, we're not working because I'm not enough, or I need to do more. I'm a recovering people pleaser. And so, it's like trying to placate everybody doing that. But what was happening is I was eroding my own desires. I wasn't speaking up. I didn't have boundaries. And that's really rooted in self-confidence. And so one of the things that I've learned that really helps so we don't react to certain things, because again, relationships will trigger you. Relationships will trigger us. It's one thing to do the work when you're single. It's another thing to do it when you're in a relationship. We become more vulnerable. Things come out. One piece of advice that I have for everybody, whether you're married or not, is really get to understand what attachment wounds are. There's what's called attachment theory. There's science that backs this. There's three kind of main things I want to kind of hit on. There's someone that has a very secure attachment style. There's someone that has an avoidant attachment style. And there's someone that has an anxious attachment style. Now, me personally, in the past, I've tend to lean more anxious. So what that means is when there's conflict or something's happening, I want to fix it. I'm spiraling, and then you get into a position where you're pursuing, trying to fix it in the moment because you're uncomfortable with whatever conflict's happening. An avoidant person, when there's conflict, they go away. It's too much, and so their way of processing or dealing with whatever's happening is they go away. And so many times you'll get an anxious and avoidant partner that'll go back and forth where one's pursuing, one's leaving, and you get really into this chase energy. And the reality is it doesn't work. And there has to be some sort of catalyst to be able to look at that or to be able to change it. And it requires that both people are willing to look at that, recognize that they have this attachment wound. It doesn't mean anything other than it's there. And this all goes back to childhood. I'm not going to get into that. But one of the things you can do today, especially with the ChatGPT, is literally you can go in there and ask all these sorts of questions, and it helps you start to understand things. Because many times we'll react to something. So let's say, again, we're in a partnership and our partner or wife is showing up a certain way and we're triggered by the way they're showing up or the things that they're saying, or maybe you're, if you're like me, if you're more anxious or someone that's more secure and someone goes away, it's like, what does that even mean? And so when you can actually get to understand and see the person and understand their attachment wounds, you're able to detach from what's actually happening. And for me personally, what I was able to do was to be able to connect more compassionately and understand where it's coming from. And to realize that it's not about me, even though it might be about me or something that we did, or something that I did. The reaction to what's happening doesn't have anything to do with me. It's rooted in their attachment wound. It's rooted in the way they move through the world. And when you can step back just for a minute and actually see it for what it is, what I have found is you garner more compassion. You garner more understanding. It's like, oh, I know where this is coming from. You don't react as much. And here recently, for the first time, as I was, we were trying to kind of reconnect and see where this thing could go, we fell back into old patterns. I did, she did, which again, that's to be expected. But I was able to actually step, if you will, kind of look from a 10,000 foot view and look in and recognize what was happening, recognizing my pattern, recognizing her pattern, and then ultimately come to a conclusion, which we both did, was, you know what? There's so much love here. And also, we're just not compatible. We want different things. We have different core values, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that I'm less than. It doesn't mean that she's less than. It doesn't mean anything other than just that. People talk about failure. I've got a failed marriage, or I failed in this, I failed this. Well, what is failure? Like, are we really sitting that? Did I fail? Did my marriage fail? Well, maybe. But what if we just weren't compatible and it took us 17 years to figure that out? What if in this last relationship that I was in, it was 4.5 years and it just, we tried, we did all the things, but it just doesn't work. There's so many life lessons that we can learn in this thing. And when we can detach our worth from it, there is so much peace in that. There is so much peace in that. Because I believe this, I say this all the time, is like, we are worthy, independent of anybody, anything we've done, any other person, any other opinions. We are just worthy, period. We are worthy of love. I've shared this multiple times on this podcast. When I first went to therapy when I was married, my therapist looked at me and she goes, "Do you feel worthy of love?" And I couldn't even answer the question. I couldn't even say, hell yes. I just kind of sat there, just quiet. And my, not saying anything was the answer. I didn't feel worthy of love. And I have found that that is true for so many people, for so many of the men that I work with, that at the core of it, if there's disconnect in a marriage or some guy's single or whatever happens to be, there's a part of them that doesn't feel worthy of love. And guess what? It's just a story, and we can rewrite that. And so, again, learn, and study around attachment style, attachment theory. There's really science that backs it. I mean, if you can geek out on this stuff, you can start to understand how you move through the world, what your triggers are. When you can get to really know you and really get to know your partner, and for those of you that are single, when you actually get to really understand how these work, you will see really quickly, how people show up. And you might be like, oh, you've got more of an avoidant attachment, or you've got something more anxious, or and to me, for someone to be really secure in who they are in a relationship takes time. Some people show up that way. More often than not, that security comes from experiences and relationships that didn't necessarily work. And if you get to the core of all of it, it really just comes down to self-love and just knowing what you want and being okay if it's not somebody that you've envisioned a life with. It doesn't necessarily mean anything other than the fact that you two aren't compatible. Now sit with that just for a minute. What if that's all it is? Just a compatibility issue, period. And it doesn't mean anything else other than that. Now, did you play a role in the relationship ending? Sure. Did she play a role? Sure. I'm not negating that, but just like peel all the layers back, detach from all the things, and just sit with that for a minute and be like, you know what? We're just not compatible, and that's okay. And if you truly, truly, truly love someone and care about someone, wouldn't you want them to be with somebody that can fulfill them and light them up? I mean, that's love. I know so many people, right? When the relationship ends, that there could be jealousy or resentment or anger towards their ex, and all of a sudden they're dating somebody else and they're showing up a certain way. And it's like, what, again, if you really love them, you claim to love them. Is it because there was somebody else? Because if you're having feelings around that, the truth of the matter is it's just triggering an insecurity in you. I remember years ago when my ex-wife, she was engaged to a guy at the time. And I remember walking in to pick up my boys, and I was watching her with him. And she was just all over him. You know, I love physical touch. So she's just like rubbing his leg. She was so close to him, so nestled up to him. And I remember for a minute there, I was sitting there. I'm like, where was that with me? You know, having this little victim martyr mentality around it. And that shifted really quickly, because then I just shifted the story and I'm like, he's providing safety for her. He's providing emotional security for her that I wasn't able to provide for her at the time. So she feels safe enough to bring this other side of her out that I didn't necessarily see in my marriage. You know, how beautiful. And it was such a beautiful experience to be able to literally go from me being a victim martyr to just having so much love for her, and that she's got somebody that's going to love her the way she needs to be loved. And the fact that I wasn't that guy doesn't take away from who I am. It just meant we weren't compatible. End of story. And I'm so grateful for that moment. And where I'm at today, you know, having here recently, you know, literally ending this relationship with this incredible woman that just, again, it didn't work and we're not compatible, and that's okay. And we gave it our all. And is there more I could have done or she done? Sure. And it just is, and it's okay. And I'm so at peace with it. And I want her to have the most amazing man in her life, and I want her to be happy. And it doesn't mean that I'm less than. It doesn't mean that anything other than the fact that, hey, we're not compatible, and that's okay. I know I've said that multiple times. I just want to hit home. If you're in a relationship that ends, or you know, or you're post one or thinking about it, it doesn't mean your worth is not attached to it. Don't let your worth be attached to it. It just is. In my experience, my belief is, whatever you believe in, like God, if you will, I don't believe that, like, I believe when one door opens, multiple doors, when one door closes, multiple doors open, and there's plenty of opportunities. And what I've experienced personally, having dated a lot, relationships, is like everything's been better than the one before. And here I am. I know my next relationship that I'm calling in will be the greatest relationship I've ever had. And I wouldn't truly fully appreciate it had I not experienced all the things before that. And each one of those moments, each one of those relationships coming to an end or not working out, were opportunities for me to go inward and do the work that I needed to do so I could ultimately call in my person. Now, one thing I want to talk about really to those that are out dating, specifically the men. So again, that there's this beauty, right, when you're out dating, when the pursuit, right? There's the pursuit of getting the girl, right? Whatever that happens to be. And when you get her, and get her could be it could be the relationship. It could be you having sex. I mean, it could be whatever it happens to be. But it's an invitation to you to get really clear of like really who you are. And also just recognize whatever feelings you're feeling at the very beginning when you're dating someone. There were multiple times that I was dating women, and I knew at the beginning it wasn't going to go anywhere. Like, I knew from the beginning. But then there was this part of me that's like, I want the girl on my side. I want the thrill of the hunt. I want to feel whatever I'm feeling. Because of course it feels good when you've got, you know, a beautiful woman on your side. She's into you. Like, it, you know, fuels the ego. It feels good. Look, I'm not negating that. But if you're pursuing somebody and you already know from the beginning that it's not going to go anywhere, then don't pursue. If you know right now today that it's like you're not ready to be married or to be in a committed relationship, then don't date. Don't play with people's emotions. Don't play with your own emotions. Get really, really clear. Get really, really clear of what you want, and then be disciplined to say no. I've got a client right now that I'm working with that, you know, he's had some failed relationships. He really wants to get married. He's longing to get married. And the reality is he's still monkeying around. He's on the dating apps. He's doing stuff because it fuels his ego. It feels good to be desired. But these women that he's talking to, he knows today that they're not his person. So I asked him, I'm like, so why are you giving them energy? Why are you spending your time doing that? And the reality is, again, what I said at the beginning of this podcast, if you want something, you've got to be that, which might mean you say no, which might mean you be alone with yourself for a minute, which might means, you get so resolute that you in being before pursuing. And I believe once you get into that energy, it happens immediately. That's been my experience. And when you least expect it, somebody comes into your life. But in the constant pursuit of something, if you already know where your headspace is, don't play with people's emotions. It's not fair to them. And frankly, it's not fair to you either. And an invitation, don't be that guy. There's been seasons where I was that guy. Like today where I'm at, the dating, I'm super intentional with what I want, and I'm not going to settle. I know my core values. I know what I want, and I'm going after it. And I'm not going to waste my time and energy, even if it feels good, even if there's like, this doesn't matter, or this will be fun for a minute. I'm not in that energy today. It's a different state of being. I want to be in a relationship. I don't need a relationship. It's very different. It's a very different energy. And I would say in many ways, I've never actually really been in this. And so energetically, I'm blocking anything that's going to distract me from what I want. I'm super intentional with where my energy is going. And the reality is, once you make that decision, you're going to find that the universe is going to test you. You're going to have things coming your way. So you're going to be able to say no. You're going to be able to deflect it. You're going to be able to keep on the blinders on so you go after what you want. I'm telling you that it works. And I've seen it happen in other people's lives, and I've seen it happen in my own lives. The biggest takeaway I want you to take away from this, guys, is a failed relationship doesn't negate or take away from your worth. Did you play a role in it? Sure. So learn from it. Take what you've learned and apply and heal or fix or change or do the work necessary so you don't necessarily show up in that relationship. So you don't show up that way in your next relationship. Also, what happens many times, and I saw this happen with a lot of people, is whatever was missing, let's say in a marriage you got divorced, people will flock to the void, right? They'll go to fill that. It's like, oh, this woman has everything that my wife didn't have. That doesn't work either, because if you don't heal your part and you do the work you need to, you're going to repeat the same pattern in another relationship, especially when the honeymoon phase wears off. You've got to do the work. You've got to take radical accountability and responsibility for your role and what you want to do. I wholeheartedly believe that like you can have it all. You can have the thriving relationship. You can be physically fit. You can be spiritually aligned. You can have the money. You can be mentally and emotionally strong, but it requires that you do the work. When triggers comes up, when there's discord in your relationships, lean into it instead of running away. There are gifts. There's things to learn. Understand attachment wounds. Understand yours. Communicate that to your partner. We all have things from our past. We all have things that we show up. Just own it. It doesn't mean you're less than. In fact, watch that as you lean into it. When two partners will lean into it, I'm telling you, magic happens. Vulnerability is hot. I am so attracted to that. I'm so attracted to a woman that like will take accountability for the role that she's playing, because that's the season that I'm in. And again, you can move through things so much quicker. There is magic that happens in that, and an invitation to do that. Again, I'm going to say it again for the 15th time on here. Your worth is not attached to a failed relationship. And even taking it a step further, did you fail? Was it just a stepping stone? Did you learn? And when you can do through that, when you can move through that, and the faster you can move through that, you're able to call in your person. And also for relationships or people you've dated in the past where there's still resentment, anger, or you're feeling insecure or jealous or whatever, like let that stuff go. If you truly love them, then you would want them to be happy, even if it's not with you. Now, that's another level of maturity. That's another level of consciousness. That's another level of seeing life. And to me, that's a deeper level of love. Yes, I love you so much. I'm willing to let you go. I love you so much. It's okay that it's not me. That's powerful. And the cool thing is when you get into that energy, it frees you. It frees you. I'm telling you, like, I've been on all sides of this, and I can just tell you personally, it's like in that energy that I'm in, for anyone that I've dated in the past, like, I'm free because I want them to be happy, even if it's not with me, because I know who I am. I know what I want, and I'm not going to settle until I get it. And I want the same for every woman that I've dated, every relationship I've been in. And I hope that you want the same. I hope that you can lean into that. guys, I've made plenty of mistakes. I have fucked up on a lot of things in my life that I'm not proud of. And also, I don't attach my worth to it. It's not who I am. It's something that I did. And I'm grateful for that. There's a lot of power in humility, in being open and sharing these things. That's why I'm so open with my stuff. Like, I have nothing to hide. Like, it's all out there. And that's why I also talk about this stuff publicly, because I don't want to feel like there's any secrets or, oh, Adam did this or Adam did that. It's like, it's all out there. And there's real power in that. So be accountable. Speak the truth. It will set you free. No matter what's happened, speak the truth. Don't live a lie. I've been in seasons of my life where I did that, and it's some of the most painful thing you can do it, because it's really, that pain is really your own personal integrity. When you can get in alignment, when you can be integrous, it's incredible. It's incredible the power that can have in your life and where it can take you. I'm grateful for every one of you. I appreciate you. You can follow me on social media, just my Adam Nugent, with no space. I'm on all the major social media channels, and we will see you next time. Thank you for joining me today on the Burn Up Podcast. Go build an epic relationship, whether you're in one or not. We'll see you next time.